My colleague and Strategic Affairs editor Aditya Rajkol is of course going to be joining us soon from the Bharat Mandapam itself. We're going to bring you live updates from the Bharat Mandapam. And we have Aditya with us on the broadcast. Aditya, very good morning to you. It did rain here in the national capital, but it seems like that hasn't, dampened the excitement of the people and all the world leaders. What more can you tell the viewers like? What are the arrangements like? We heard that there is absolutely no traffic in the national capital, but more than that, the cavalcade, the sound of the sirens, the motorways, the motorcades, all those leaders, help the viewers understand what it's like to be at the Bharat Mandapam.
A very good morning to all the viewers from Bharat Mandapam. Kabir, certainly the rain hasn't dampened the spirits. It was a rainy morning in the national capital. And as you rightly point out, of course, since the pandemic, we haven't really seen the central Delhi, the Lutyens Delhi, really without traffic or any kind of vehicular movement. But certainly taking security precautions. Of course, we know the elite commanders of the NSG, the Delhi police commandos, and several other paramilitary forces are also deployed all across the capital. Heads of delegations of not just the G20 nations, but also 9 special invitees to the G20 are also present. And in about 45 minutes from now, we'll be arriving at the Bharat Mandapam. So just to give you a glimpse of where I'm standing right now, I'll ask Manish to, in fact, pan and show you right behind me, in fact, is the Bharat Mandapam. This is the venue of the G20 Summit. At about 9:30, we will have the first session on One Earth. Thereafter, a second session on One Family will also take place at the G20. We are told that in between 1 p.m. and 2:30 p.m., 2 bilaterals will take place of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi with the Prime Ministers of Japan and United Kingdom. We'll also have another bilateral sometime in the evening when, of course, Prime Minister Modi meets the Prime Minister from Italy. But in the meanwhile, a little after 5 p.m., we'll see 2 important multilaterals also taking place. And these would be, of course, focused, one on connectivity and building consensus also. The one on connectivity is massively important because this is between US, Saudi Arabia, UAE and India about railway networks across the Middle East, and then taking that forward through shipment routes to India. So as of now, it's all attention in New Delhi. All the global leaders have arrived here, and in a few moments from now, will be arriving at the Bharat Mandapam. Of course, through the day, we'll have deliberations, and tomorrow is the day after the last session when the final New Delhi declaration will be declared. But as you know, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been a sticking point through the G20. It was the same during the Bali G20 as well, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi famously said that this is not an era of war. So we'll have to wait and watch how the final communique will be really drafted. But that is essentially the key because India's efforts has been to build some kind of a consensus and peaceful efforts towards a resolution of the conflict. But in a few minutes from now, we'll have the formal inauguration of the G20 right behind me at the Bharat Mandapam.
Absolutely. And, Aditya, building on that particular, response, talking about the G20, talking about the theme, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, One Earth, One Family, One Future. It seems like the sessions have been divided as per these themes, and the 2 sessions that are going to take place today, what's all that about going to be?
Well, one thing to keep in mind, Kabir, is that India's presidency of G20 has been a little different from the usual that really happens all across the country. This is in fact the first time that South Asia and India are hosting a G20, and all through the year, ever since the time that India took over the G20 presidency, it's essentially been about people's presidency. It's about the participation of the common people all across India in the G20. So there's been a lot of color, a lot of tradition and culture involved in the G20 summit as well. And we saw a lot of side events taking place all across the country. In fact, in Jammu and Kashmir also we had the J&K tourism working group meeting taking place just a couple of months back. And all across the country, ending with the Sherpas meeting that took place in Manesar, a little on the outskirts of New Delhi. As you pointed out, the theme of the G20 has been Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, One Earth, One Family, One Future. And that's essentially what everyone has been talking about, that We are together in this, and it's not just about the G20 countries, it's also about African Union, it's also about Global South, it's also about all those who are not essentially formally part of the G20. India has become the voice of the voiceless and emerged as a leader of the Global South in the last 1 year as well. If I may use the term, and we have discussed this ad nauseum in the past as well, that India essentially has made the term Global South sexy. And you know, it has been used since the 60s, but now West used to call us third world, and it is essentially Global South, which is now emerging and asking what had to be asked for last several years. So nobody can ignore us, and here is what you know, New Delhi is actually hosting the G20. Next year we'll have the Quad also taking place here. Yesterday we had three important bilaterals taking place, with Prime Minister Modi meeting the leaders from US, Bangladesh and Mauritius. And as I said, there are three important bilaterals taking place today as well.
Right. And Aditya, I know you've got a big day ahead of you. Before we let you go, you know, who better to, you know, talk about this than you? Give us a sense of, you know, what was the most important thing that happened in that bilateral between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Joe Biden? Was it ISET? Was it the WTO, you know, poultry dispute that has now been resolved? Or was it, you know, the strengthening of the relationship? What, according to you, was the pain point that has now been ironed out?
Well, one thing that we need to keep in mind is that India and US strategic bilateral cooperation has been going from strength to strength in the past administration as well. We've seen Prime Minister Modi's chemistry with Obama and Trump as well, and that is being taken forward with Biden as well. Yesterday, for the first time, Biden, ever since he took over as the president, visited India, and he immediately after landing went to the residence of the Prime Minister at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. There they had a 1 hour long bilateral, and there was a huge statement, a 29-point statement that was issued, a joint statement issued initially by the White House and thereafter by the Prime Minister's office here as well, which clearly indicated a lot of talking points, big points, including jet engines, including WTO, including the poultry dispute that has been now resolved, and of course US's support to India for the permanent you know, membership of the United Nations Security Council. Apart from that, also the Quad has been something that India, US, Australia and Japan have been working very closely on. And next year in 2024, India will be hosting the Quad Summit, in which US has accepted the invite and will be formally being represented by President Biden. Of course, you know, a lot to talk about through the day, but this was the big takeaway. This was the big bilateral between India and the United States. Through the day, there will be bilaterals today as well. And it's likely that by the end of it, there could be a statement issued by New Delhi, or there could be a press conference by the Ministry of External Affairs.
All right, Aditya, let me not hold you back. You've got a big day ahead of you. Many thanks for joining us here on the morning G20 HQ Central. We're going to keep bringing the viewers an update from Aditya. Aditya, many thanks to you. Do have a good day at the Bharat Mandapam.